Welcome to the Innovation Squadcast. If you are looking for a podcast about instructional strategies enhanced by technology, you came to the right place. In our conversations, we will talk with tech experts, share ideas and strategies to help you build your toolbox with tools that you can use in your class immediately.
Welcome to the Innovation Squadcast. Today we are talking choice boards, but we're taking it to the next level with HyperDocs. In an effort to increase student ownership and engagement, try using HyperDocs to shift the focus from teacher-led lectures to student-driven, inquiry-based learning, allowing students to actually learn through exploration. Today I'm joined by Pam Hubler, who we were again doing choice boards last week, and decided that we wanted to do another whole episode on HyperDocs as we kind of got into the weeds with that and didn't want to make sure that the choice board podcast was too long. So before we get into it though, let's pause for this week's quick tech tip.
This week's tech tip is all about Canva and the amazing new features that were unleashed last week. Go to class link, click on your Canva account. You will be brought to your Berkeley County Canva. You'll see right here, discover the magic from Canva Create. Following this watch the event icon, you will see all these new features. Yours might have a bow on them and look like a gift wrapped present. I was so excited, so I already opened mine to see all about the features. To learn a little bit about each one, watch the event, and it will give you about a 1-minute preview. Once you've watched that, if you feel like you want to check out one of these features more closely, then click on it and it will walk you through the steps on how to use it. So go check out all the brand new features in Canva. And if you have any questions, reach out. Happy creating!
Thank you for that quick tech tip. So, we're doing choice boards and we're talking about them, and definitely check out last week's episode to look at that. Look at the show notes. Lots of good resources if you want to go the choice board routes. But another way that you can get student engagement is using HyperDocs, and it doesn't have to be choice board. It can be, but what when we started talking about HyperDocs, what kind of we're in choice boards, I guess. What kind of drew you to HyperDocs?
Well, I found a book, first of all, and if you're on video, here it is.
If you're listening,
if you're listening, it's called the HyperDoc Handbook, Digital Lesson Design Using Google Apps, and it is by Laura Highfill, Kelly Hilton, and Sarah Lindis, and they kind of they changed their choice boards to be more interactive, where the students are actually participating in them. It's not like they might be turning in separate things, but sometimes the choice board is literally just here, pick from these things. They don't do anything with the choice board. A HyperDoc makes it where all the learning is kind of packaged in there as well.
Sure.
So that way it's a great way to differentiate and give kids more options. But they're actually using the choice board to actually do all the work from teaching, learning, and submitting in HyperDocs. So it just kind of takes it to another level. So their book was kind of how I started getting into it, because I was kind of like, what's the difference between, if I just have a document with all these things linked to it, that's not actually a HyperDoc.
Correct. Yeah.
There are hyperlinks on a document, but it's not a HyperDoc. So you definitely have to look at the examples to really see the difference.
Sure. And what I noticed too is like the big part of this was student creation, which is where, definitely caught my attention, because, creating these HyperDocs, allowing, and then inside of that, thinking about, all right, where can my students create something? And then also how can they display it right there inside of that HyperDoc? And so that we've talked about that with John Spencer's book, and how it then takes the learning to a different level when the students know that it's not just for the teacher, but they know it's for the class, and that multiple people are going to be looking at this. That definitely can change how they attack that particular assignment. So I thought that was really cool as well. So.
Right. And in the book and on the show notes, I use a lot of quotes from the book. So this is definitely not like we didn't create this. It's we're just talking about it to get our teachers involved. But a HyperDoc is that interactive Google Doc. It could be a Google Slides. There's a lot of different options you can do. And it just replaces kind of that standard worksheet method of delivering instruction. So, and then you still have to look at a good lesson design. But the HyperDoc just allows teachers to package a lesson with the students in mind, and it's not just where the teacher is almost giving them a curated list of resources, and then they're in the HyperDoc to do the work.
Sure. So let's get started. Like
Mhm.
when a teacher is looking to create a HyperDoc, how do you create one? Where
Right.
would you start?
Well, first, basically, you have to look at your objectives, just like you do for anything else.
Exactly.
And then maybe even like what into learning style you use, whether it's, there are a couple different ways where the easiest one, we've talked about this with the choice boards, where you have like that explore, explain, and apply, where you're thinking about how your students are going to explore the content. And then you might even give them some information that explains it. So even if they didn't get what you really wanted them to from the exploration on their own, then it might even be like a little video that you embed
Sure.
or that kind of thing. And then, but then they have to apply something with it. And this is where you can actually do it right in, if you have like a text box or whatever, in a Google Doc where they have to enter their information, they're applying right on the choice board. So it's kind of like mixing them together.
Right. That's what I really liked. I like that part of being able to, show their what they've created right there with links and different things. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
When you're looking at, you've determined your objective, you've selected your kind of your learning cycle, right? Depending on what it is that you're looking to do. And then what are you looking to do next after that? I know basically what Google things would you use to create them?
Yeah.
That's where the questions I'm looking for as well.
You can use the suggestions that they were talking about are like Google Docs, Slides, Forms, and Sites.
Yeah.
Slides and Google Drawing. I could really add drawings in there too.
Drawings would work as well, yeah.
Just because it would just depend on how much content you're going to put in there. So in Google Slides and Google Drawing, they're very similar. So if it's a one-page document that they're going to be working in, drawings would work.
Sure.
But if it's multiple pages, which a lot of the times they will end up being multiple pages, and Google Slides is good.
Yeah, I like the Google Sites one too. I mean, that was like you could almost do a whole unit right there inside of it.
Yes.
And then with the Google Sites gives you options to create different pages, have ways for them, and then be able to insert a lot of different content into that and have the kids share their content.
Right.
I thought the Google Sites was one I wouldn't have thought about originally, but I thought that was a really cool, way to be able to build a nice little HyperDoc. So,
yeah, and it's hard to explain.
Yeah.
If you're just listening, it is kind of hard to explain. It is a little bit easier to check out the resources, to see the examples. Google Docs is another one where you can kind of spell out all your content and then have, like, if you use a table and you insert a table, so that way when you force make a copy for the students, whether you're using, you can do this in Schoology, you can even just send them the link. You don't even necessarily have to have it as an assignment, where you can force make a copy and then they can just type right in those fields. Google Forms, that one is, I don't see that one quite as much because you can't get as creative in Google Forms, but they can still enter their content and their answers and all that stuff into the Google form. So
that's where I would think you'd use Google Forms. You'd use Google Forms more as something like inside of the HyperDoc in a way that they're applying or explaining some information before they move on to whatever their next particular assignment would be. And I think that's where you would use your Google Forms. And definitely, again, check out our show notes. Our show notes link is found in the description window. And so definitely, check out this, as we've got, all the different resources. We have a video for the tech tip of the week if you wanted to check that out, the ability to join the Squadcast PD. So lots of great stuff inside of our show notes. So we've determined the objective. We've selected a learning cycle as far as explore, explain, apply, workshop model, your 5 E's, things that kind of go along with our choice board that we talked about last time as well. There's actually a HyperDoc model, right? As well. What was that one? I remember you talking about that one.
Yeah, and I think the one that most people use are the 5E instructional model, where it has the engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. Because the HyperDoc model is a little bit longer, so that's one you can go, like you said, with a whole unit, where you have the engagement, the exploration, the explain, the apply, but then you also have a share, a reflect, and extend.
Right.
So it kind of pushes it to the next level, especially with the reflection.
I like that component too. I really like the extending part, because your early finishers, you always got to have somebody ready to move on.
Exactly. So, early finishers. And then the ones that are just like, I really got into this unit.
Sure.
I want to look into it more, but it's not a requirement. So they might not turn anything in for that. But so there's a lot of different models, and that book is actually a really great book.
It is.
If you really want to get into this. And then they have a website That's just the hyperdocs.co, and you can see samples. My favorite is when you look at the samples, because when you look at them, it's a little easier to tell, oh, okay, I understand what this
Right.
is.
Makes a little more sense. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm just going to click on one. So that way, let's see. So if we wanted to do, like, let's say Earth Day is one of the options. It actually opens up a Wakelet collection.
Nice.
So that way you can see all the different ones. And I'm going to go to just one of the Google Docs one. So this one is just our Earth Day, where it has the Explorer and it has the videos. So watch the videos below, and then you go into the Explain, and then you can select an option to explain what you can do to help the Earth.
Sure. So you can add some choice inside your HyperDocs.
Exactly.
So that's where like the choice element comes in, which is really nice.
Yeah. So you could do Flipgrid, you could do any of the learning management system, whatever you happen to be using, and then there's a slide for apply. And then you just use a drawing tool for this instance. And then when you click on it, it'll actually take you to whatever it is, whether it could be, I don't know, you could have it on a Jamboard. You can have anything that you want them to actually
create videos,
be able
create
to
thing links, create whatever, right?
So whatever you want them to click on.
Absolutely.
And then the good thing is once you have all this gathered together, then kids can actually look at each other's too. Yep. So all you have to do is just share that one document. I know some teachers even take a link to their creations and put them all, like if you had that Google site, or in the comments on your learning management system, or, there's lots of ways to share it. Because as we said last time, when the kids create and they know their classmates are going to see it,
the
definitely work
changes how they do it.
Changes. Yep.
So we've done 3 steps. We've determined your objective. We've looked at the learning cycle. We've selected your package. Step 4, what would that step 4 be?
So step 4, when you get into, you have to build your workflow. So you just consider 4 questions when you're doing that. And first is, how will you push out the information for the students? Whether it's just a link, or if you're going to really, I would think like in Schoology, you can just force you do it as an assignment. And then feedback, you'll have to think about how you'll interact with the students to provide feedback. Because if they're turning in a Google Doc or something, you still want to be able to give them feedback.
Correct.
And then how you collect things, like how are you going to collect the students' thoughts or what they did or the products that they created, whether it's an assignment or maybe they're just sharing a link, putting it on one document so that way everybody can see. There's lots of different ways that you can do that. And then, of course, you do have to think about how many clicks that it takes, because you don't want to take forever. So look at the students' work, and then you also want other kids to be able to look at it pretty easily.
That's what's nice with Google, is that you can like embed videos right in there, embed certain links that make it really easy, so that there shouldn't be a whole lot of clicks inside of this to get them where they want to go. So
that's where Google Slides. I do think Google Slides is probably the best for this, and I think a lot of people do it already and don't even think about it. Where all they have to do is add in a shape that is for them to enter their text for their answering. And then it becomes a HyperDoc instead of just a choice board.
Sure. And so that was step 4, and then there's only one more step, and which one is that?
Yeah, and that's just to design your HyperDoc. And we did put in the show notes, there's a screenshot of a sample HyperDocs for every subject. And if you go to that site, you can really click around and get some ideas of all the different ways that you can actually create them. And this is one thing I know we were talking about, how this would be a nice workshop.
Definitely.
Because I think a lot of people have gotten comfortable with the choice boards, but how we can step it up a notch and let the kids actually interact with them instead of just being like a worksheet.
I think that's the best thing about this, is that the kids are inside of this. They're working inside of the document, and they are going to be able to show what they've created inside this document to other students. And so they're learning from each other. They're holding each other accountable. You can have that reflection piece. You could have the evaluation piece, the students getting involved. And we always want, again, the more the students are doing, the more they're learning. And that's, I think, the most important thing. And that's what I really liked about these HyperDocs. So,
and on that site, they do have something called Teachers Give Teachers. And another thing that I would call like almost like a free teacher, pay teacher.
It is free.
So where you can browse the templates and the samples. So you can look at the templates, which is nice to give you an idea what it looks like. And you can make a copy of those and just start right from there, where you don't have to start from scratch. You can just use one of their templates. And then the samples, that's where what I was just talking about as far as all the different subjects. So it's a great way to be able to just kind of do some research and see what would work for you. and it's, check it out. It's definitely a great place to start.
Yeah, and then in the show notes, we did a HyperDoc templates link. There's Adventures in HyperDocs from the Shake Up Learning show. You can also, again, learn more there. HyperDocs for social studies. Had to, throw in my social studies peeps out there. And then also had like the impacts of HyperDocs on education, just so you can learn a little bit more about it. It was, I thought it was a pretty interesting article that I was reading about, the impact that they can have and making learning, engaging and important. I think the 4 C's are going to be here all over it, as far as the kids are going to be having to collaborate, because you can create that inside of your HyperDoc. They're thinking critically. They have freedom now to be creative, and they're going to have to be able to communicate. And whenever you get the kids doing the 4 C's, I think you're winning. So.
Yeah, and I think there might actually be a 4 C's HyperDoc in there as a resource, and all those different resources we have down there. And you talk about social studies. This is a great way to combine standards. Yes. So, like if you're doing social studies and ELA, you can combine so many different things into one HyperDoc and really plan it so that way you kind of hit multiple standards at one time.
So definitely check out our show notes. Join the Squadcast PD so that if you listen, you get 2 episodes, you get an opportunity to get some extra. There's a Google form to fill out. Just tell us what you thought about the episode, and then be able to get an hour credit for every 2 episodes that you listen to. So definitely join that, and that link is also in our show notes as well. So
and be on the lookout for the HyperDoc
workshop
that we'll do.
PD, definitely. Yes. And if you have any questions, always reach out to your ILC team. We'll be more than happy to be able to help you with building one of these, point you in the right direction for templates, and come up with some great activities for students to be able to create inside of there as well. So
definitely.
Yep, we'll definitely look forward to that. So we really appreciate everybody listening. Reach out to us with any questions, and keep checking in with our podcast. We keep sharing more information. All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye.